Life is getting more and more competitive these days. We must be sure in every step. Each move, each minute is really important. So make a move really carefully. Welcome once again to News Analysis. News Analysis is a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with, the main points in a nutshell. Hosni Mubarak trial, Egypt judge to deliver verdict. Leon Panetta, US to deploy 60% of Navy fleet to Pacific. Syria conflict, Russia's Vladimir Putin stands firm. Diamond Jubilee, Queen starts celebrations at Derby. China arrests high-level US spy in Hong Kong, says reports. New Indian Army Chief Bikram Singh takes over. And now the news in detail. Hosni Mubarak trial, Egypt judge to deliver verdict. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak is due to learn if he has been found guilty of conspiracy in killing of protesters during the last year's uprising. A court in Cairo will decide whether Mr. Mubarak as well as his former Interior Minister Habib al-Adli and 4 aides ordered police to shoot demonstrators. All 6 deny the charges. They could face death penalty if convicted. Mr. Mubarak also faces separate charges of abusing his powers to amass wealth with his sons Ala and Gamal. An associate, the tycoon Hussein Salim, is being tried in absentia. 2 other senior Interior Ministry security officials are accused of failing to anticipate protest and protect the public and private property. Army responsible Hosni Mubarak is the first former leader to be tried in person since the start of the Arab Spring uprising last year. Zain al-Abidin Ben Ali of Tunisia was found guilty in absentia of drugs and gun charges in July, while Yemen's Ali Abdullah Saleh received immunity from prosecution after handing over the power in November. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was killed by rebels in October. Last May, Egypt's Prosecutor General declared that Mr. Mubarak would stand trial for conspiracy in killing of about 850 unarmed protesters during the 18-day uprising that forced him to step down in February. He was also charged with using the position to enrich himself. In August, Mr. Mubarak was wheeled into a courtroom on a stretcher because he had reportedly been suffering heart problems. The prosecution experienced difficulties from the start, with none of its witnesses providing damning statements. The first 5 recanted their initial involvement that the police commanders had been ordered to use live ammunition. Leon Panetta, US deploys 60% of Navy fleet to Pacific. The US is planning to move the majority of its warship to the Asia-Pacific region by 2020, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta has revealed. He said that by 2020, about 60% of the US fleet would be deployed there, in the clearest indication yet to the new US strategy in Asia. Mr. Panetta told a regional security meeting in Singapore that the shift was not aiming to contain Chinese power. Beijing has indicated it is unhappy with the US boosting its presence in the Asia-Pacific region. Last November, President Barack Obama announced that the Asia-Pacific region was a top priority of US security policy. His comments were seen as a challenge to China, which is striving to be the main regional power. By 2020, the Navy will reposture its forces from today's roughly 50-50 split between the Pacific and the Atlantic to about 60-40 split between those oceans, Mr. Panetta told the annual Shangri-La Dialogue Conference. That will include 6 aircraft carriers in this region, a majority of our cruisers, destroyers, combat ships and submarines. Mr. Panetta said the U.S. would aim to increase the number and size of the training exercises it conducts alongside its allies in this region. He said U.S. budget problems and cutbacks would not stop the changes, adding that the U.S. Defense Department had money in a 5-year budget plan to achieve its goals. It will take years for those concepts and many of the investments we are making to be fully realized, he said. But make no mistake, in a steady, deliberate and sustainable way, the United States military is rebalancing and brings enhanced capabilities to this vital region. China has long-running territorial disputes with allies of the U.S., including the Philippines, over island groupings in the South China Sea. In recent years, it has grown more assertive on this issue. An increased U.S. presence in the region is likely to embolden those countries and irritate Beijing. Syria conflict, Russia's Vladimir Putin stands firm. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has resisted diplomatic pressure from Western nations to support tougher action against Syria's government. Mr. Putin, an ally of Syria, called for more time to be given to the peace plan of envoy Kofi Annan. The US and UK have called on Moscow to strengthen its condemnation of the Syrian regime since last week's massacre in Houla, where 108 died. Earlier, Moscow opposed a UN Human Rights Council resolution on Syria. In an emergency session on Friday, the Council condemned Syria over the Houla massacre and called for an investigation. But Russia voted against the US-backed resolution, arguing that it was unbalanced. Meanwhile, a US government website published satellite images apparently showing a mass grave in the Houla area. Reporters say Putin's latest remarks made after a meeting with French President François Hollande highlights the divisions between Moscow, Paris, and towards the conflict in Syria. Speaking at news conference, Mr. Hollande called for further pressure on sanctions and said the only solution was President Bashar al-Assad to resign. He said Mr. Assad's regime had conducted itself in an unacceptable, intolerable way and had committed acts that disqualified it from power. There is no possible exit from this situation except with the departure of Bashar al-Assad, he said. Mr. Putin, however, questioned calls for the Syrian president to quit. Why are we thinking that if we push the current leadership from power, then tomorrow general well-being will begin there, Mr. Putin said. What is happening in Libya? What is happening in Iraq? Has it become safer there? We propose to act in an accurate, balanced manner, at least in Syria. Diamond Jubilee, Queen starts celebrations at Derby. The Queen is to attend an Epsom Derby later, launching a 4-day weekend event for her Diamond Jubilee. The Queen is due to be driven down the course in an open-top car. There will be a red arrows displayed and Catherine Jenkins will sing the national anthem. The weekend's main celebrations include the Thames pageant, involving 1,000 boats on Sunday, and Monday's concert in front of Buckingham Palace. There will be more events UK-wide to mark 60 years since the coronation. On the final day of the weekend, the Queen will attend a national service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's Cathedral before thousands of well-wishers are expected to line the route of formal carriage procession back to Buckingham Palace. The royal family will then make a balcony appearance at the palace. On Friday, roads in central London were closed in the early hours as members of the armed forces and the household division were among 2,000 servicemen and women rehearsing the carriage procession from Westminster Hall. And tributes were paid to the Queen on Friday by Prime Minister David Cameron and the Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Roe Williams. In an interview with the Sky News, Mr. Cameron said, "What I see in Her Majesty is someone, in spite of the fact that she has been on the throne for 60 years, in spite of the fact that her and Prince Philip are now relatively elderly, there is an extraordinary level of physical energy, mental energy, and above all, devotion to her people, to the institutions of this country and to the way our democracy works.